Everyone, my name is Nicole Johnston and I am a grade 11 student at Holy Trinity Catholic High School in Bradford. For my English class, I have prepared this presentation to show you the movement from order to chaos as portrayed through Macbeth's mental state in Shakespeare's play Macbeth. At the beginning of the play, Macbeth's mental state is balanced and orderly. He is seen by his peers as a faithful, noble soldier who knows his place in society. And with this, he is satisfied. In this first quote, we can see that Macbeth is proud as he comes home with from a victorious battle. Click the YouTube link. When he mentions that it is a fair day, he means life is good because everything is in order. When he describes the weather as being foul, he is foreshadowing that bad things are to come. Then Macbeth meets the witches, and his spark for ambition catches fire. This quote shows his childlike vulnerability and uncontrollable impulse for power. This is the moment that influences a chain of events that leads to chaos. Refer to the quote on this slide as we watch a YouTube clip.
Stay! You imperfect speakers, tell me more! By Finnell's death I know I am Thane of Glamis, but how of Cawdor? The Thane of Cawdor lives a prosperous gentleman, and to be king stands not within the prospect of belief, no more than to be Cawdor.
By calling the witches imperfect speakers, Macbeth is childishly demanding the witches to fill in the gaps of their prophecies. Because he is confused about how to become the Thane of Cawdor and how to become the king. But the witches toy with him and disappear. This confusion led Macbeth into a fantasy, and he daydreams that he kills the king so he can have the throne. This quote dramatically demonstrates Macbeth's captivation with the witches' prophecy and the possibility of how far he will go to fulfill his fantasy. It is the catalyst of his journey to chaos and his total mental collapse. This next quote clearly shows Macbeth's struggle against evil as he falls deeper into a world of illusion. Here we see him in a room in his castle talking to a dagger before he kills King Duncan. Refer to this quote as you watch the YouTube clip.
Dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand. Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still.
For Macbeth, he now believes that the only way to fulfill his fantasy of becoming king is to kill Duncan. But at this point in the play, reality keeps knocking on Macbeth's door, and his conscience is tirelessly fighting against his whimsical thoughts. Macbeth is trying to figure out what is real and what is not. And as he reaches for the dagger, he tries desperately to connect the reality of his sight to the reality of his touch. Macbeth follows the imagined dagger and violently kills Duncan, becoming more confident in his fantasy as he is named king. This leads Macbeth into more killing, and he has another experience with a hallucination of Banquo's ghost, which is probably his conscience still poking at him to snap back to reality. This quote and the events that unfold after it dramatically show the fall of Macbeth towards a world of internal and external chaos. Macbeth is now suffering actual symptoms of a real mental illness. Somebody call the doctor. In this next quote, right after his second meeting with the witches, Macbeth is talking to Lennox, and he tells them that he will no longer think before he acts. He will just act. And he immediately decides to kill Macduff's family. He is now inside a world of chaos. Watch this YouTube clip for the quote.
Macduff has fled to England.
fled to England.
Aye, my good lord. Time thou anticipatest my dread exploit. From this moment, the very firstlings of my heart shall be the firstlings of my hand. To crown my thoughts with act, be it thought and done. The castle of Macbeth I will surprise. Seize upon Fife, give to the edge of the sword his wife, his babes, and all unfortunate souls that trace him in his line.
This quote confirms to the audience that Macbeth's mental state is in chaos. It confirms that Macbeth is committed to the witch's prophecies. He is filled with impulsive thoughts only a serial killer would have. He wants to kill Macduff's wife and children just to spite him. Macbeth has a total lack of feeling and compassion when his own wife, Lady Macbeth, commits suicide. He responds to the news with a chilling indifference. Furthermore, his loss of reality is seen when armies come in his castle to kill him, and his soldiers desert him. Yet, he still feels invincible. He believes the witches are right, and doesn't realize that he's being tricked. Macbeth can no longer tell the difference between fantasy and reality. He can not hear reality knocking on his door anymore. This quote demonstrates Macbeth's mental state in complete, utter chaos. In this last quote, we see Macbeth finally sees the difference between reality and fantasy as Macduff comes to kill him. The quote in this slide demonstrates when his mental state is sparked back to order. They meet outside the palace to fight, and Macbeth thinks he is still invincible right up to the moment that Macduff tells him that he was born by a cesarean section. Which means, according to the witch's prophecies, Macduff was the only one who could kill Macbeth, and he finally opens up the door that reality had been knocking on so loudly. Watch it unveil here on YouTube.
Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped. Cursed be the tongue that tells me so, and be these juggling fiends no more believed, that palter with us in a double sense, that keep the word of promise to our ear, and break it to our hope. I'll not fight with thee.
In this very moment, Macbeth realizes that the witches were juggling the meanings of their prophecies to manipulate him into living in a fantasy world. Macbeth realizes that he will be killed by Macduff, and he chooses to fight to his death. Macbeth realizes that if he walks out alive, he will be punished for his crimes and worse, be the subject of Scotland's gossip and hate. This quote displays the moment when order is restored, when Macbeth's mental state escapes the prison of fantasy and rejoins his conscience. By Shakespeare using Macbeth's mental state to demonstrate the theme of movement from order to chaos, we see a very effective way of giving the audience a better understanding of Shakespeare's view of mental illness. Shakespeare integrated this theme into his plot by guiding the audience through Macbeth's experiences. They watch him battle with inner conflict as he wrestles with moral standards. Then they watch him battle with outer conflict as he challenges society's ranks, and clashes with characters such as Lady Macbeth, King Duncan, Banquo, and Macduff. Shakespeare cleverly connected these characters to design a platform that spreads his own insightful voice to the fragility and vulnerability of the human spirit and the tragedy of mental illness. And due to the seriousness of this presentation, I think I should end it with some comic relief and share this insightful thought with you that this theme in Macbeth led to Macdeath. Thank you.